Amid the threat of a food shortage linked to the shutdown of meat packing plants across the country, as cases of COVID 19 have crippled their workforce, President Donald Trump has invoked the Defense Production Act to force meatpacking facilities that were closed to reopen and those who were considering closing to stay open. So now, in his executive order, he says this: it is important that processors of beef, pork, and poultry, meat and poultry, in the food supply chain continue operating and fulfilling orders to ensure a continued supply of protein for Americans. However, outbreaks of COVID 19 among workers at some processing plants have led to the reduction in some of those facilities' production capacity. Given the high volume of meat and poultry processed by many facilities, any unnecessary closures can quickly have a large effect on the food supply chain. Now, so that order that he signed, with that as an explanation, um, delegates the Agriculture Secretary, Sonny Perdue, to take actions to ensure that meat and poultry processors continue operations. Now, Bloomberg reported that Trump decided to take this action amid estimates that as much as 80% of the U.S. meat production capacity could shut down as a result of this virus. So, this is a difficult situation where, look, we faced a possible shortage of food, right? So, food shortages in the middle of a pandemic generally are not a good thing. But at the same time, you also have hundreds of thousands or hundreds to thousands of workers that could get sick and die as a result of coronavirus and unsafe working conditions. So that has led to workers speaking out. In fact, one employee who works at a Tyson facility in Waterloo, Iowa. Now, remember, Tyson CEO recently came out and he said, "Look, we're having a huge problem with the food supply because we've got all our workers that are starting to get sick. They're getting sick, they can't go to work, and so the food supply is threatened." And so, the CEO of Tyson, not exactly wanting to shut down, and that's why he's put out that warning, right? So that presumably Donald Trump would take this action to make sure that people continue to have to be forced to go into work into these plants. So now these workers, one of them said, quote, "All I know is this is crazy to me because I can't see all these people going back into work. I don't think people are going to go back in there." Now, there's another employee at the plant who said, "I just don't know how they're going to do it when there are people dying and getting really sick. Who's to say people are even going to show up to work?" I mean, look, he's right. They're both right to question this, right? Because already I've reported that the status quo at these plants has been generally unsustainable, especially during this crisis. I mean, you cannot have workers going into work without proper protection and doing those jobs and being confined into small spaces. Unfortunately, the way that it's set up is you have workers working right next to each other on a line that is moving very, very fast. And so you've got that issue where you have people standing in close quarters inside of, inside of these factories and these essentially slaughterhouses. And that makes it very likely that people are going to get sick. That is a recipe to spread this virus. And so I don't necessarily know how you can protect the workers against that. So now the problem is that with this order, I mean, the Defense Production Act basically says you can force these workers to come in. And so now you have these people that will be forced under penalty to come in and work or get and possibly get sick and die. This is disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. So I think that if you're going to force people to go into work because they're essential, right? That's what this designation is. We're designating you as an essential place of business. Then maybe these workers should be treated as essential and be taken care of. I mean, there's ways that you can do this, right? And where you can show them that their safety actually matters. One of those ways is, of course, ensuring that you have proper protective equipment. Another way is, you slow down the lines and you bring back less workers and slow down production. Now, that, of course, will affect the meat supply. However, at least you'll be able to still have some meat end up back at the markets, right? And be able to protect the workers from getting sick. Because after all, you're still going to have a slowdown if you don't have enough workers because they're also getting sick. You see what I mean? So now there are workers that are willing to fight by not coming in. There are some workers who talked with CNN who were open to returning, but were really, really concerned about how their return could be done so in a safe way. In fact, one worker said, all in all, it can be a good thing to go back to work if it's done right. But my faith in this administration has never been strong and is non-existent currently. And that's, of course, because this administration has shown they don't really care about the workers, nor do they really care about the safety of the consumers as well. I mean, there's no evidence that you can get COVID-19 from food, but prior to the outbreak, the Trump administration did pull inspectors off the lines and allowed line speeds to be increased at hog processing plants. And John Adarula of the Damage Report did an excellent story, and he keeps bringing up this point every time we talk about the food industry, how this has led to increases of hair, nails, genitals, and poop, yes, feces, inside of these products because you just don't have enough people that are inspecting this, and you have line speeds that are too fast. This is pre-coronavirus. So already there is a huge problem with our meat production. Now, COVID-19, not enough workers, it's even worse. You cannot simply keep production the way that it used to be. And I'm finding that this is true for a lot of things. You cannot just keep things the way they were, and you cannot return to the way they were anymore. It's just impossible to do. And so there has to be a way to do these things and to do these things safely. And as I said before, until you are able to do PPE, and to protect all these workers and figure out, where to place and position workers so that they're, doing proper social distancing and proper health screening and things like that, then you should just shut it down. You should absolutely shut this entire thing down. I mean, it's not as if we can't survive with a little bit of less meat, right? And I say that right now as somebody who enjoys meat. I like steaks. I like bacon. I like all that stuff, hamburgers. But look, during the shutdown, and even beforehand, I try not to eat as much because it is better for the environment when you don't consume as much meat. Now that we're in the middle of coronavirus and we're doing the stay-at-home orders and a lot of people are self-quarantining, it's not as if we can go out and get meat every few days. No, we should really be limiting our shopping trips. I know I have where I don't shop unless I really, really need it. For one, it's super expensive to do so. When you have people, that go out and pick up your food for you, you have to tip really, really well because they're putting themselves in danger. And you have to basically limit yourself to make sure that everybody else is able to get food and that you do get enough. And so you don't have to do more shopping trips. You know what I mean? You have to limit yourself to make sure that you do maybe a shopping trip once every couple of weeks, as to limit people's exposure, or if you're going out yourself, to limit the exposure of others. And so that's what I'm trying to do personally. And that means less meat. Meat goes bad fairly quickly. And I know, of course, you can freeze it. But again, I find myself not buying as much of that and finding things and really buying things that last a lot longer. So there's that. So I could definitely, and we could definitely do with a little less meat in order to help keep these workers safe. And there's the option for some people. It's not for me, but to go more vegan options, or to go beyond meat. Again, not really an option for me. I am not that good of a person. I'll just keep it honest with you guys. I would try, but I can't do it. I can't do it. That's just me. But if you can do so. So now, obviously, the Trump administration, they see this a lot differently. In fact, you have Trump and the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying that they support limiting the liability of employers who order their employees back to work so they cannot get sued if employees get sick. So understand that, right? Mitch McConnell says, oh no, we're going to order people back to work. We're going to take away their unemployment. And that's the other part to this, right? We're going to take away their unemployment. We're going to make sure not to send them any more stimulus money, right? That one $1,200 check, that's enough. And then we're going to make sure that the companies, if people get sick, because we're sending them back out and they're most likely going to get sick, to make sure that they can't sue the companies. Right. So great. Blanket immunity for corporations. So they don't have to protect their employees. So they don't have to protect the consumers. That is what we're dealing with. That is just evil. If that happens, let me tell you, one thing that we should do, if corporations get blanket immunity, general strike. That's it. That's the only acceptable option. General strike. Don't buy from companies that support this. Don't work at any company that supports this. Shut it all down. That's literally the only power that we have left to fight against this. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.